Run your code on demand with Azure Functions. Completed. 100 XP. 10 minutes. Choose your development language. Now that we've created a function app, let's look at how to build, configure, and execute a function. We'll execute our function in the next exercise, so you don't need to complete any tasks in this unit. Triggers. Functions are event-driven, which means they run in response to an event. The type of event that starts a function is called a trigger. Each function must be configured with exactly one trigger. Function execution can be triggered by HTTP requests, a scheduled timer, and events from the following Azure services. Bindings. A binding is a declarative way to connect data and services to your function. Bindings interact with various data sources, which means you don't have to write the code in your function to connect to data sources and manage connections. The platform takes care of that complexity for you as part of the binding code. Each binding has a direction. Your code reads data from input bindings and writes data to output bindings. Each function can have 0 or more bindings to manage the input and output data processed by the function. A trigger is a type of input binding that has the ability to initiate execution of some code. Azure provides a large number of bindings to connect to different storage and messaging services. Define a sample binding. Let's look at an example of configuring a function with an input binding and an output binding. Let's say we want to write a new row to Azure Table Storage whenever a new message appears in Azure Queue Storage. This scenario can be implemented using an Azure Queue Storage trigger and an Azure Table Storage output binding. The following snippet is the function.json file for this scenario. Create a function in the Azure portal. Functions provides predefined function templates, which are based on a specific type of trigger. These templates, in your chosen language, make it easy to get started creating your first function. This module isn't supported for all languages supported by functions, and the portal itself doesn't support creating functions in all languages supported by functions. For supported languages that use the function.json file to define functions, you can create and edit these functions directly in the Azure portal. These portal-supported languages include JavaScript, PowerShell, Python, and C# script. Languages that define functions directly in the code itself must be developed outside of the portal and deployed to Azure. These non-portal supported languages include C#, Java, Python, and JavaScript TypeScript. Function templates. When you create your first function in the portal, you can select a predefined trigger for your function. Based on your selections, Azure generates default code and configuration information, such as creating an event log entry when input data is received. Selecting a template from the Add Function pane provides easy access to the most common development environments, triggers, dependencies. When you create a function in the Azure portal, you can choose from more than 20 templates. Once created, you can further customize the code. Navigate to your function and its files.
We have both free and paid subscriptions to our applications to meet different users' needs on different budget.
Navigate to your function and its files. When you create a function from a template, several files are created, including a configuration file, function, JSON, and a source code file, index. You can create or edit functions for your function app by selecting Functions under the Functions category from the Function app menu. When you select a function that you created in your Function app, the Function pane opens. By selecting Code plus Test from the Function menu, you have access to actions in the command bar to test and run the code, to save or discard changes you make, or to obtain the published URL. By selecting Test Run from the command bar, you can run use cases for requests that include query strings and values. The function's path above the code box displays the name of the file that is open. You can select a specific file from the drop-down to test or edit, for example, function, JSON.